Contrary to the notion that it's only the question of whether we are prohibited to work from the Torah, or whether not prohibited to work based on the Torah, that's the whole question on which the tefillin devolve. The Rabbi Yitzchak Hazakin, the Rabbi Isaac, the author of the Tosfot, in the Haggadah Maimoniot, he says, wait a second, matzah and sukkah, they're also a sign. And apparently he believes that matzah and sukkah continue to exist during these intermediate days, and they're a sufficient sign. And why do you need to wear tefillin? So there were some Ashkenazic authorities who thought you shouldn't wear tefillin during these times either. The bottom line is, the Mechaber, the author of the Code of Jewish Law, he says it's asur, it's forbidden. You do not wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed. It's a sign. Chol Hamoed is a sufficient sign. And the Vilna Gaon agrees with him. And the Zohar before him says that, no, it's terrible, you don't wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed. But the Ramah, the Ashkenazic authority, the rabbi of Krakow, he says, Rabbi Isserles says, you put on the tefillin, you make a bracha, a blessing over the tefillin. He unabashedly feels that you should wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed. The Taz, one of the commentaries on the Code of Jewish Law, says, why don't we hedge our bet? Wear your tefillin, but don't make a blessing. Don't make the blessing, which kind of confers that it's definitely a Torah obligation. Just put them on and don't make any blessings. Don't take any risks. Who knows what the answer is? It's an old debate. It's hard to say what the answer really is. We at the Anshe Sfard, we have a Nusach Sfard. We follow the more Kabbalistic, more Hasidic view based on the Zohar. And here the custom is that almost universally we do not wear tefillin on Chol Hamoed. Now, so far, we've said that there's a debate as to whether melacha, work, is prohibited on Chol Hamoed. We've spoken about a debate as to whether matzah and sukkah continue to be obligations during Chol Hamoed, during this time. And we said that based on this question, you can get to a third question, which is, do you have to wear tefillin today or not? And that too is a debate which devolves on the previous and prior debate. But so far we've spoken about Chol Hamoed as a monolith. There's the intermediate days of Pesach, and of course the intermediate days of Sukkot would be the same, wouldn't they? But actually, the Hamoed Davar, the Netziv, says on his commentary to Parshat Re'eh, the Parshat HaMoadim, where it speaks about Pesach, Sukkot, Shavuot, and there he says, Chag HaSukkot. Sukkot is known as a Chag HaSukkot, where in Devarim it doesn't refer to Pesach as a Chag as in its entirety. He says, Sukkot is different than Pesach. On Sukkot, every day of the holiday has a unique sacrifice. One day you bring 13 or 12 cows, the next day 11 and 10 cows, different number of cows, different sacrifices each day, which shows us that it's a different holiday. The third day of Sukkot is not the same holiday as the fourth day of Sukkot. And in that sense, the days of Chol Hamoed Sukkot are different. They're unique. Each day is its own holiday. And it might be different than Chol Hamoed Pesach, where each day it's the same sacrifice. The same sacrifice on the first day, and the second day, and the third day. Yes, each day has a sacrifice, but they're all the same. Nothing new. It's ho-hum. There's nothing special about today as opposed to yesterday. And in fact, this difference between Sukkot and Pesach is reflected in our recitation of the Psalms of Thanksgiving, the recitation of Hallel. We don't recite the complete Hallel on the latter days of Pesach. We have one Hallel at the beginning of Pesach. Outside of Israel, we have the first 2 days, and that's it. We're done with the complete Hallel. In a sense, there's no Hallel, official Hallel, only a half Hallel for the most of Pesach, because Pesach is basically done after the first 2 days. These days, later on, are lesser in quality. So the Hamoed Davar, the Netziv, Naftali Tzvi Yehuda of Berlin of the 19th century suggests that there's a difference qualitatively between Chol Hamoed, the intermediate days of Pesach, and the intermediate days of Sukkot. Finally, I'd like to mention that we find ourselves today in another type of Chol Hamoed as well, a second Chol Hamoed. I want to wish you a good Moed, a happy holiday in the second sense as well. Since the second day of Pesach, we've been counting the Omer. Hayom Arba'a Yamim LaOmer. Today is the fourth day of the Omer. Now the Omer also seems to create an intermediate period. We have, on the first day of Pesach is a holiday. We count 7 weeks, and after that is another holiday. Well, that sounds familiar. A holiday at the beginning, a holiday at the end. It sounds a whole lot like Sukkot, a 7-day holiday, followed by the 8th day. Here too, we have 7 days of holiday, followed 6 weeks later by Shavuot, another holiday. Says the Ramban Nachmanides, 13th century Sephardic scholar who moved to the land of Israel. He says, you know what? We are now in a Chol Hamoed. We're in an intermediate period. It's an intermediate period between Pesach, the barley festival, and Shavuot, the harvest of the wheat. Between Pesach, the Exodus, and the coming to Mount Sinai on Shavuot. So in that sense, we're in a second Chol Hamoed, a second intermediate period as well. And this can explain a very fascinating custom. There's a custom mentioned in the Code of Jewish Law that women should do not work during the evening. They refrain from work in the evening. It's a mild way. Refrain from work in the evening. It's not so widely practiced today, but it's mentioned in the Code of Jewish Law and was practiced and is practiced in a number of circles. That during Chol HaMoed, this long 7-week Chol HaMoed, there's some sense of us being in a Chol HaMoed period. The Sfirat HaOmer, the counting of the Omer, is not only an Omer period, it's also a intermediate day. It's also some sort of quasi-period, quasi-holiday. And therefore the women in the evening have a custom during the counting of the Omer not to work in some way. So if we ask ourselves, what is Chol HaMoed? Well, we had two views. Is it more Chol or is it more Moed? Is it more of like a weekday or more like a holiday? In terms of work, in terms of the extent to which our matzah and sitting in the sukkah are obligatory, and also this has ramifications and implications for whether we wear tefillin or we don't. But we mentioned the Gemara in Chagiga. The Gemara in Chagiga says, wait a second. If the notion of the holiness of this day stems from the fact that if we look back, we had holiness behind us. If we look forward, there's holiness in front of us. We're in the middle of two great holy days. Then shouldn't every day be that way? Shouldn't every day be somehow in between the holiness of last Shabbat and next Shabbat? And the Talmud says, well, surely Pesach and the days of the week are quite different. But in some way, the Talmud was right on. The Talmud had a fascinating idea there. And that is that in some way, every day is Chol HaMoed. In some way, every day is an intermediate day. Every day is in between last Shabbat and next Shabbat. As the Zohar has it, the first 3 days of the week receive their holiness, their wafting of, you can smell the holiness of Shabbat. The first 3 days, the Havdalah candle and the Bisamim are still in the air for the first 3 days of the week, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. And then, on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, we begin to feel the winds blowing from next Shabbat and that holiness that's coming there. Pesach and Chol HaMoed are not unique. Chol HaMoed is a lesson in how to live one's life in holiness. One's life in between holinesses. In between the holiness of the first days and the last days. It's a training ground. And here in the training ground, maybe we do eat matzah. Maybe we do sit in the sukkah on Sukkot. Maybe we do have some sort of prohibition of work. But on the regular trenches of the regular weekday workday, there, we're not going to be prohibited in work. On the contrary, we do work, and it's a mitzvah to work every day of the week, during the 6 days of the week. But on those 6 days, we continue to be inspired from the holiness behind us and the holiness that comes later. The intermediate days of Pesach, the Chol HaMoed, more holiday or more not holiday. The idea is that we need to learn to look at the holiness behind us and the holiness coming forward. The holiness behind us is not only the holiness of the first days of Pesach, but the holiness of every Shabbat. And we need always, as we contemplate what kind of week are we going to have, to look forward to the next Shabbat and say, the next Shabbat is coming. I got to begin that holiness today, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I've got to begin now, because the holiness is coming. That's Chol HaMoed. It's a training ground for the life of the weekday, how to really live in between holinesses. I want to thank you for joining us today, and I want to wish you again a Moedim L'Simcha, happy holiday of sorts. And I want to remind everyone that you can find this archives of all kinds of classes that we've given so far on youtube.com/AsBeMemphis. youtube.com/asbmemphis. Thank you for joining us. Moadim l'simcha. Again, if you'd like to email me, that's at rabbijmf@gmail.com. rabbijmf@gmail.com. Thank you.